While you were at the police department, did you find out that your wife had been accused of beating your child?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Breathe Life and I'm back with another video. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. On my channel, I talk about how I was able to grow my type 4 hair to hip length. I also discuss true crime stories and anything that's on my mind that I would like to share with you. In today's video, I will be discussing the story of Emani Gabriel Moss, and she passed away after extensive abuse. I really want to highlight this story because it really shows how the system failed her, and I think that it's a story that needs to be told. So let's get right into it. Emani Gabriel Moss was born on April 23, 2003. Shortly after Emani's birth, her mother, who was addicted to drugs, surrendered her parental rights, and Emani's father, Eman, gained sole custody of her. Eman often took Emani to the Freedom Christian Church, and it was there that he met Tiffany Moss, who was a preschool teacher. Eman and Tiffany fell in love and got married on July 2009 and had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Though there were no records indicating that Tiffany abused her biological children, she did begin to abuse Emani, and the abuse increased in March 2010 after a beating of Emani caused Tiffany to lose her job as a preschool teacher. Emani was age 6 at the time when she told a school nurse that she was afraid to go home with a bad report card because she was worried that her parents would hurt her. She also told the nurse that her stepmother had spanked her with a curtain rod. The nurse then found multiple scabs, multiple bruises and welts on Emani's arms, back, chest, legs, and shoulders. Emani was then taken to the police headquarters, and Tiffany was arrested and charged with first-degree child cruelty. She admitted to hitting Emani 3 times after she failed to do her homework. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years of probation as part of Georgia's first offender program. The plea deal was signed by the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services. They later dismissed a case against Tiffany and Eman after they completed parenting classes. After that March 2010 beating, Emani was taken out of her father and stepmother's home and placed with her grandmother, Robin. Emani stayed with her grandmother for about 6 months. During this time, Emani's school performance improved and she was really doing well. Eman fought for custody of Emani, and in the fall of 2010, CPS returned Emani back to her father. On the stand, Eman stated that his pride wouldn't allow Emani's grandmother to have custody of her, although the grandmother took great care of Emani and had a lot of time that she could dedicate to caring for Emani. Eman was at work all of the time, and he didn't spend a lot of time with his children. Emani's grandmother fought to retain custody of her granddaughter. Though she suspected that Emani was being abused, she could not persuade authorities to give her custody. Prosecutors later argued at trial that the March 2010 abuse incident launched an escalating cycle of more abuse that ultimately resulted in Emani's death. Because Tiffany had pleaded guilty to beating Emani, she was no longer allowed to teach preschool.
While you were at the police department, did you find out that your wife had been accused of beating your child?
Yes, when I got down there.
And did you give a statement to the police in that regard?
Yes, I spoke with the detective.
Did you become aware that she was eventually arrested?
Yes, she got arrested there.
And do you know whatever happened with that case?
She took a plea of probation, 5 years to my knowledge.
Tell me what life was like after that at your house.
It was rough.
Was Tiffany allowed to work as a teacher after that?
No,
Did Tiffany ever work after 2010?
no.
What did she do?
Stayed at the house.
Stayed at Pearlie's house?
Yeah, wherever we were living, she stayed at the house.
Did you feel like her job at that point was to take care of the kids?
Yes.
This led her to resent Emani because she blamed her for her job loss. Tiffany continued to abuse Emani for the next several years. In July 2012, Emani tried to run away from home twice. In one case, she went to an officer and told him that she wanted to run away because Tiffany had tied her up with a belt and placed her in a cold shower. The police responded and were told by Tiffany that Emani was not telling the truth. Because there was not enough evidence to charge anyone, Emani was returned to Eman and Tiffany. In another July 2012 incident, Emani ran away and was found sleeping in the bushes of a nearby apartment complex by a police officer. Emani told the officer that she had ran away because her stepmother was mean to her. The officer reported the event to CPS and filed runaway and curfew violation charges against Emani to ensure that she would see a juvenile court judge. From 2011 to the summer of 2013, the Mosses moved around, sometimes living with family. Eman worked very long hours and he did not see his daughter often. He later reported at trial that Emani would eat a lot when he saw her on the weekends. When the Mosses lived on their own, Emani rarely saw extended family. In May 2013, the Mosses visited Eman's sister's house for Mother's Day. His sister and grandmother noticed that Emani's hair had been cut. When Robin confronted Tiffany about it, Robin was the grandmother, Tiffany reportedly said, "If you act ugly, then you should look ugly." The sister then noticed that Emani was acting shyer than usual. After the 2012 to 2013 school year ended, Eman and Tiffany announced that they would pull Emani from public school and homeschool her. Emani's sister objected to the idea and called CPS, asking them to intervene, but they declined. On August 6, 2013, CPS received an anonymous tip that Emani was being neglected by her father and stepmother and also appeared to be thin. According to a lawsuit against CPS filed by Robin, they made no visit to the home and did not conduct a follow-up due to having no current address and no current signs of maltreatment. Mother's Day 2013 was the last time any members of Emani's family, besides her father, stepmother, and siblings, saw her alive. In the late summer of 2013, Eman, Tiffany, their children, and Emani moved to an apartment in Lawrenceville, Georgia. During this time, Eman worked 2 jobs, making him largely absent from Emani's life. He would leave for his first job in the early morning, briefly return in the late afternoon, and then leave for his second job around 6 p.m. Then he would return around 10:30 p.m. or 11. While Eman was at work, Tiffany was left to care for the children. At some point, Tiffany began to starve Emani. According to prosecutors, the starvation likely lasted several weeks. During this time, Emani was confined to her bedroom. Neighbors only saw Tiffany's biological children and did not even know that they had an older sister. Emani eventually became too weak to move and was unable to leave her bed or use the bathroom. Though Tiffany denied food to Emani, she did take care and feed her 2 biological children. On several occasions, she sent Eman pictures of meals she had prepared for her children, and in another instance, she asked her husband to bring home cookie dough so she could bake. At trial, prosecutors pointed out that Emani would have had to smell the cookies being baked as she lay in her room starving to death. According to the medical examiner who testified at trial, the process of starving to death would have been very painful. At first, Emani would have experienced hunger pains. She then would have become fatigued. She would continue losing energy and weight until she finally passed away. In the evening of October 24th, Emani suffered what Eman believed was a seizure. Eman testified that when he came home, Tiffany told him there was something wrong with Emani. He then went into the bathroom where he found his daughter in the bathtub shaking. Emani was unresponsive and her eyes were rolling back and forth. Eman moved Emani to her bed where she stayed for the next couple of days. Eman visited her during this time and tried to feed her, but he was unsuccessful. Emani later died on October 28, 2013. By the time Emani died, she was severely underweight. A doctor described her as more or less skin and bones. She weighed 32 pounds, the weight of the average 3-year-old. Additionally, her organs were found at autopsy to be very small. On October 28th, Tiffany called Eman at work to tell him that Emani was dead. Eman testified at trial that when he came home from work, the family seemed normal. The children were playing and Tiffany was watching television. He found his daughter laying on a blanket on her bedroom floor. He then told his wife that he should call the police, but she insisted that they could not because she would lose custody of her children. Tiffany told Eman that they needed to hide Emani's body. Eman then wrapped Emani's body with blankets and moved her to the computer room. For several days, the couple kept Emani's body in their apartment. Eman testified at trial that he would go to work and spend time at home with Emani's body grieving. The Moss couple agreed that they would cover up Emani's death. The day after Emani's death, Tiffany bought new sheets and a new coverall as the ones Emani had used were covered with excrement and urine. Tiffany suggested burying Emani and reporting her as a runaway. Eman went to Home Depot and bought a trash can, trash bags, charcoal, and lighter fluid. On Halloween, Tiffany and Eman decided to put Emani's body in a trash can and burn it. When they tried to place her in the trash can, they found that she was stiff with rigor mortis. They used duct tape to compress her body and bend it so that it could fit in the trash can. In the early morning hours of November 1st, the couple put the trash can containing Emani's body in the back of their car and took their children to find a place to burn it. They found a secluded location to commit arson, and as the couple watched the body burn, they found that it would not burn to ash. After about 5 minutes, they extinguished the fire and took the trash can and Emani's body back to the apartment. The day after attempting to burn Emani's body, Eman went to work with Emani's body still in the back of the car. He confessed to a friend about the crime, and the friend urged him to call the police. Eman thought about it, and after coming home from his second job, he decided to contact the police. At 4 a.m., he made the call saying that he was suicidal. Eman informed Tiffany about his call to the police. When Tiffany learned that the police had been called, she placed the trash can with Emani's remains in a grassy area at the apartment and fled in the family vehicle with her children. Upon arrival at the apartment, police were told by Eman that Emani had drunk some chemicals and died. He claimed that he had panicked and put her body in a trash can outside the apartment and tried to cremate it. Police found the body and did not believe Emani's story, quickly identifying him and his wife as suspects. Eman was arrested immediately. Tiffany dropped her children off at her mother's house and then turned herself in. Eman confessed to trying to cover up Emani's murder by reporting her as a runaway and trying to burn her body. In 2015, he pleaded guilty to felony murder and concealing a death. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In exchange, he agreed to testify against Tiffany, who rejected a plea deal which would have allowed her to be sentenced to life in prison. Eman is currently incarcerated at the Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia. The case against Tiffany went to trial. Tiffany was charged with 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of cruelty to children, and 1 count of concealing a death. Tiffany represented herself during the trial and declined to address the jury, present mitigating evidence, or have her relatives who had attended the trial testify on her behalf. She laughed during the trial, and she never appeared to be remorseful. She was sentenced to death on May 1st, 2019. She is currently incarcerated at the Arendelle State Prison and is Georgia's only female death row inmate. CPS really failed Emani in such a great way. I do not for the life of me understand why Emani was kept in that home to suffer additional abuse. And this is a story where CPS really failed Emani, and they were held accountable. The worker was held accountable, and they lost their jobs. I'm not sure whether they were charged with anything. I don't believe that they were. Emani should have been left in the care of her grandmother, because when she was in the care of her grandmother, she was happy, she was doing well in school, and it was just evident that it was just a great place for her to be. But because, as Emani's father said, he had pride, Emani's father took her out of the loving arms of her grandmother and placed her in the care of his cruel wife.
Did your mom ever ask for Emani to come and live with her?
Yes, yeah.
And what did you say to that?
In my pride, I said I was trying to prove something to my mom that I can do it, and I said no.
Eman was working so much that he didn't even really spend time with his children. He could have just left her in the care of her grandmother. He knew that Tiffany was abusive towards Emani, so he also failed her as a dad. Honestly, I feel like he doesn't even deserve to be called a father, because he did not protect her. He did not keep her safe. He allowed for her to be abused. He saw her losing weight. He said that when he cared for Emani during the weekends, she would eat a lot. He enabled Tiffany to continue to abuse Emani. So just because Emani was not Tiffany's biological child, for some reason she hated Emani. And there's so many cases like this with cruel, wicked stepmothers who abuse children just because it's not their biological child. And it's horrendous. Honestly, I feel the first incident where Emani was found to have multiple bruises and welts on her body, I feel like they should have removed her from the home from that instance, because there's multiple bruises, multiple welts. What parenting class would make someone stop being an abuser? This wasn't like it was just one incident of corporal punishment gone wrong. It wasn't like there was one welt on her body from a spanking. There were multiple bruises on her body, multiple welts. This should have been grounds for Emani to be removed from the home. When police found Emani on the streets, they should have contacted CPS and CPS should have intervened. Eman's sister spoke to CPS and told them that Emani was going to be homeschooled. She expressed concerns regarding that, yet CPS did nothing. In so many cases of abuse, the abuser takes the child out of school and homeschools them. But the reason why they take them from the schools is because they don't want any people to notice the bruises on the child's body. There should be a law made that if there has ever been an incident of excessive corporal punishment in the home, the parents are not allowed to homeschool any children. CPS could have intervened at any moment before this situation escalated, but so many people dropped the ball. CPS dropped the ball, law enforcement dropped the ball, and it's just a sad, sad story. When I was researching this story, many people commented that they felt Emani's father was mentally challenged. They said that he appeared a bit slow in the videos of him during the trial. Mentally challenged or not, he should have intervened and he should have called the police from the get-go. If she was brought to the hospital, they could have treated her. They could have tube fed her because she actually died 3 days after the seizure. So for 3 days, he said he tried to feed her, but she was unable to consume food. So basically, she just starved to death. If he had just called the police the same day she had the seizure, she could have still been with us. But he basically allowed her to die, him and Tiffany. So I feel like they're both equally as responsible for this crime. You would think that someone who has children already would be empathetic towards other children. I'm trying to understand what is the psychology behind hating your stepchild. So guys, what are your thoughts about this story? I would love to read your comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. This story is really tragic and it really took a lot out of me to research this story and to tell this story. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Until next time, have a blessed one. Bye.